Hey guys! Tonight, we slip quietly into the folds of fabric that smell faintly of sweat, cedar wood, and centuries. You're lying beneath a paper lantern's soft flicker. Somewhere, distant drums thud like heartbeat. The room is still, but alive, like something ancient is watching from the corners. We're not diving into another boring bedtime lecture. No. Tonight, you're stepping barefoot into a secret Japan. Before the fanfare, before the cameras and commercial breaks, sumo wasn't a sport. It was a whisper, a ritual, a sacred exchange between flesh and gods. And oh yes, sometimes it got a little steamy. If mellow history helps you relax, go ahead and like and subscribe. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. Drop it in the comments so we can dream across time zones together. Now, take a slow breath. Let it out even slower. Let the ancient dust settle. You're here now. You trudge behind a silent procession in the thick dusk air. The robed figures ahead move slowly, their steps in rhythm with the distant beat of taiko drums echoing through misty cypress groves. There's incense in the air, something woody, maybe sandalwood or pine, and the faint sharpness of sake on someone's breath. You're not entirely sure if you're part of the ceremony or if you've just stumbled into it by accident. The figures stop near a small clearing. A ring of tightly packed earth lies ahead, faintly glowing under torchlight. This isn't an arena. It's a sacred stage. And the men stepping into it aren't athletes. They're vessels. You sit cross-legged on cool packed dirt as they prepare. No one speaks, not even a whisper. It's all breath and movement. You watch as two towering men, each nearly as wide as an ox yoke, remove their robes. Their bodies gleam under the torchlight. Thick limbs, soft bellies, muscles not sharp like a soldier's, but dense like rooted trees. There's a quiet reverence to their stillness, as if their nakedness isn't vulnerability, but offering. You learn that sumo in its earliest form was less about winning and more about summoning. You weren't wrestling for applause. You were calling down the divine. You were showing the gods your full form, not to boast, but to say, "This is what I have built with your soil, your rice, your storms. Please now, send rain, or mercy, or victory." You lean into the earth a little more. It's cool beneath your hands, slightly damp, and scattered with grains of rice from a previous ritual. You don't brush them away. Across the ring, the wrestlers begin to move. Slowly, like something underwater. They raise their legs high, then stop. Left, then right. Dust lifts. The earth seems to shiver. That stomp? That's the shiko. Today, fans think it's just warm-up, but here, it's something else. It's a prayer. It's an exorcism. The stomp scares demons from the dirt below. Cracks open the earth to let the gods look in. Or so the elders say. You look around. Elders with folded arms. One with a single white eyebrow that reaches toward his cheek. Another rubbing prayer beads with hands the size of soup bowls. Then there's the priest. He's not dressed like you'd expect. No golden staff or bejeweled robes. Just a white wrap, a wooden fan, and a face as unreadable as stone. He steps into the ring, sprinkles salt, and nods. The match begins. No bells, no shouting, just bodies crashing like waves. A thud, a grunt, a slap that echoes like thunder through the trees. But beneath it all, ritual. You realize every movement has been performed for centuries. Left foot back, right hand high, belly forward. Not strategy. Memory. muscle memory passed down from one wide-hipped master to the next. Historians still argue whether these early matches were purely spiritual or if they doubled as political theater. Rumors say emperors watched from behind hidden screens, using bouts to test warriors' loyalty and strength before real wars, and maybe to see who could entertain a bored court concubine or two. You notice the crowd again, silent, reverent. A baby cries once, then stops. Even the insects seem hushed. The atmosphere isn't solemn, it's thick. Like everything here means something, even the way the dust settles. And then, one wrestler lifts the other, not just off balance, off the ground. A feat so shocking, you almost forget to stay quiet. That wrestler wins, but no one claps. Instead, there's a bow, a ritual drink of sake, and a whispered thank you to the spirits. You glance to your left. A boy no older than 12 mimics the stomp with exaggerated drama, earning a sleepy grin from his mother. She tousles his hair. Careful, she whispers. You might summon something too big for you. You don't doubt it. Later, in the quiet that follows the ceremony, you lie back on a straw mat. The stars blink overhead, framed by swaying cedar branches. A cricket resumes its song. The earth still smells faintly of salt and sweat. You think of the wrestlers. Not performers, not warriors. Something else. Something older. Maybe messengers. Maybe myths in the making. You feel the weight of the history pressing down. Not heavy, not uncomfortable. Like a blanket, thick with centuries. Warm. You let your eyes close. But just before sleep takes you, you hear one final stomp, far off, fading. And you wonder if that sound just cleared a demon from beneath your bed. The earth still hums under you from that final stomp, as if it's trying to remember the shape of those massive feet. You roll gently to your side, the straw mat crackling beneath you, and let your eyes half lid. But sleep doesn't come yet. Not while the night is still thick with sacred breath and half-told stories. You follow the fading scent of rice wine and incense until it leads you back, further back, to the old temples where it all began. Not the Sumo, you know. Not stadiums and sponsorships and ranks. No, you're walking into the earliest rites, where Sumo was something closer to sacred submission than sport. A slow dance meant to stir the gods awake. You're told you must strip, not for vanity, not for spectacle, but 'cause nothing impure enters the ring. Not silk, not ego, not even a whisper of metal. So you fold your robes, bare your skin, and step into the chilled pre-dawn air. A monk daubs something wet on your forehead. Ashes, maybe. Charred paper from last season's prayers. It smells like fire and forgiveness. The wrestling doesn't begin immediately. First you fast, then you eat. But not too much. Sticky rice, just a few bites, handed to you by a girl no older than your youngest cousin. Her face is serene, but her fingers tremble slightly. You wonder what happens to the rice she offers if you lose. You wonder what happens to her. The shrine priest chants. You don't understand the words, but the rhythm makes your spine tingle. Then someone hands you a small dish of salt. You're told to throw it, not scatter, but throw with conviction, with belief. Salt purifies the space, burns away evil. But in this light, it just looks like a shimmer of snowflakes across blood-brown earth. A bell rings. Somewhere behind you, someone murmurs the names of long-dead ancestors. Not yours, someone else's. But it still feels like a roll call, as if the spirits have taken attendance, and now the match can begin. You learn that in the very first sumo rituals, The match wasn't about pinning or pushing. It was about resistance. Who could stand their ground longest? It was sometimes hours of nothing but leaning, straining, thighs quivering, until one man's knees gave way to the gods. And if neither did, well, they'd say the gods had their fill of strength, and both would be blessed. Some scholars argue that these rituals may not have been about victory at all, that the physical display was merely the vehicle, a means to show the gods what the village could offer in body and spirit, to give them a sample, like a slice of orange at the grocer's stall. But others think there's something more ancient happening here. A fertility rite. You and your opponent, both stripped and sweating under sacred eyes, pushing into each other like seasons colliding. Not fighting, not mating. Something else. Something in between. You're told the matches once ended with both men falling, intentionally, as if to say, we are equal. Now, bless the land equally. You wonder if that's why the rice harvests were so bountiful during those years. You wonder if the gods liked humility better than hubris. In the corner of the ring, a small altar stands. On it, 3 things: a rice bundle, a blade, and a bundle of reeds tied with red string. Earth, war, spirit. You're told that once, the losing wrestler had to sleep beside that altar all night, listening for a whisper. If the gods forgave his weakness, he would rise in the morning refreshed. If not, well, you're assured that most rose. Most. You lie back now, staring at the stars, while soft laughter floats from the communal bathhouse. Steam curls into the dark sky like incense, and you imagine the wrestlers soaking the pain from their shoulders, speaking little, maybe singing a bit. That deep kind of singing that comes from the belly and seems to echo against the ribs. Someone once told you that wrestlers weren't allowed to bathe fully before a ritual match, only a quick douse, enough to show respect, not indulgence. Cleanliness was for after, once the gods had been properly impressed, which might explain the smell. It's not bad exactly, just real. Salt, skin, and time. You look to your left. A shadow moves beside you. An old man, face like cracked bark, eyes clouded but alert. He points at your chest and says something that sounds like kami. You think he means God. You think he means it's still inside you, waiting to be awakened. Or maybe he just thinks you forgot to bow before entering the ring. Either way, you bow now, just in case. And then the night deepens. The torches burn lower. A wind moves through the trees and brushes your bare arms like silk. You're cold, but not uncomfortably so. It's the kind of cold that reminds you you're alive. The kind that says, yes, stay awake. This matters. From the forest's edge, a fox watches. You're not sure how long it's been there, but its eyes catch the flame light like mirrors. It doesn't move, just watches, as if it too has been summoned by the ritual. Historians still debate whether animals were considered divine witnesses in early sumo rites. Some think the foxes were messengers. Others think they were just hungry. But tonight, you choose to believe it knows something you don't. Eventually, you're led away from the ring and toward a long wooden dormitory where straw mats line the floor like thick autumn leaves. You find your place, lie down. You listen as the wind sighs through the wooden beams, as if the gods are done speaking, and now it's your turn to dream. Sleep teases you, curling around the edges of your mind like smoke, but the night has more stories to tell. You turn on your side, pulling your blanket tighter, and you hear it, the low rumble of a drum in the distance. Not ceremonial this time, not part of the ritual. It's a dinner drum. And just like that, you're pulled from sacred silence into the sticky, slurping world of post-match traditions. Because after the gods are pleased, it's time for people to be fed. And in ancient sumo circles, food wasn't just nourishment, it was communion. You follow a narrow path down to a warm-lit hall where a few dozen wrestlers sit on the floor, laughing, eating, occasionally grunting at each other in a language that sounds like shared exhaustion. It's loud, but not chaotic. Rhythmic, like the stomps earlier, but instead of demons, now they're scaring off hunger. A young server hands you a bowl. It's warm and heavy, and when you peer in, you see a strange mix of rice, dried fish, green onion, and something gray. You ask what it is. He shrugs. Ash, from the altar. You blink, he grins. For protection. Apparently, this dish, ash rice, is one of the oldest post-ritual meals. A blend of cooked and sacred, meant to remind your body that it just did something divine. Or weird. Or both. Beside you, a hulking man with a top knot scoops his portion in 2 bites, belches loudly, then nods at you like you've passed some unspoken test. But the mood shifts when a name is mentioned. A name that hangs in the air a little longer than it should. Kuwana. You ask who he was. The responses vary. A sumo priest. A drunk. A magician. A thief. They say he trained champions in the old days, in secret, deep in the forests, using techniques forbidden by the temples. They say he made his students wrestle blindfolded, upside down, even underwater. One rumor insists he summoned a fox spirit to test them, which might explain last night's visitor. No one knows what happened to Kuwana. Some say he walked into the woods and became a tree. Others say the emperor exiled him after a match turned deadly. One older wrestler swears Kuwana disappeared after whispering something to a shrine statue, something in a dead language, and watching it blink. Historians still argue whether Kuwana was a real figure or a folkloric mashup of a few controversial priests. There are old scrolls with his name, yes, but no official records, just whispers. And in sumo, whispers carry weight. As the meal winds down, you help carry the empty bowls to a back room. Inside, you find a small altar, low, humble, and strangely modern. There's a wooden carving of 2 wrestlers locked in a grapple, but it's the offering bowl that catches your eye. Inside, sticky rice. Always sticky rice. You ask why it's used in everything. A young monk explains it like this. Sticky rice clings, it binds to your fingers, to your memories, to the gods. Simple, beautiful, possibly complete nonsense. But when he offers you a final rice ball, one with a tiny strip of salted plum inside, you accept it like a relic. It tastes like heat and tears, like something ancient refusing to die. After dinner, the wrestlers gather in the courtyard under a flickering lantern strung from a pine branch. Some stretch, some meditate. One tries to teach a kitten the shiko stomp, which goes as badly as you'd expect. You drift into the edge of the group, just in time to catch a whispered conversation about the ritual before the ritual. Something you hadn't noticed. Before every match, even before the stomping and salt, each wrestler eats 1 seed, a single sesame seed. You ask why. The answer, because even a giant starts small. Okay, that one actually makes sense. But another wrestler leans in and adds, or maybe because the gods get jealous if we start too big. Which also makes sense. One of them mentions an old belief that the sesame seed was once considered a sacred eye, that swallowing it meant letting the gods see through you during the match, so you wouldn't dare cheat. Not in front of that kind of gaze. No one really knows if it's true. But tomorrow, they'll all eat one, just in case. You excuse yourself and wander toward the bathhouse where steam curls like lazy ghosts in the lamplight. The wooden floors are slick beneath your feet. The smell here is sharp. Soap, cedar, sweat, and something faintly metallic, like the tang of ancient coins. You slip into the water and feel your whole body exhale. The wrestlers speak softly here. No stories, no boasting, just sighs and a few muttered jokes that get drowned under splashes. One jokes that the water is sacred because it holds more wrestler than actual liquid. You chuckle, mostly because it's true. As you soak, you notice a small carved wooden plaque above the water basin. On it, 3 sumo silhouettes, carved in deep relief, their arms outstretched, their bellies round. But if you look closer, one of the figures has wings, tiny, subtle. A mistake? No one seems to notice but you. Later, as you dry off and wrap yourself in linen, someone tells you an old story about a wrestler who trained so hard and purified so perfectly that he ascended into the sky during a match. Not after. During. Just lifted into the air like smoke, never touched the ground again. They call him the Cloud Rikishi. You ask if that was Kawana. The answer is a wink and maybe Kawana trained the cloud. Then someone else laughs. Or maybe he was the cloud. It's not helpful, but it is cozy. You make your way back to the dormitory, your skin warm, your mind humming with sesame seeds, ghostly priests and flying wrestlers. You lie down, close your eyes, and just before sleep takes you, you swear you hear someone whisper, Kawana never really left. The dormitory breathes around you, soft snoring like shifting gravel, wooden beams creaking in response to midnight air. You drift in and out, but something pulls you back to the surface. A quiet shuffle, a wet cough, a low moan, maybe a dream, or maybe not. You sit up slightly. Something feels wrong. You step outside onto the temple porch. The night is darker than before. Even the crickets seem muted. The air holds that particular silence that happens just before a storm or a secret. That's when you see the shrine priest standing alone in the ring. But he isn't chanting. He isn't sprinkling salt. He's weeping. And at his feet lies a still, unmoving body. You take a hesitant step forward, and the priest looks up, eyes sunken and rimmed red. You don't speak. You don't need to. It's happened. One of the wrestlers died, and you weren't ready for how quiet that would be. Before rules, before rankings, there was always this risk. Sumo, even in its sacred softness, was still a battle of bodies. Collisions so powerful they could snap ribs, crush lungs, shatter bone. Not common, not planned, but always possible. Historians still argue whether early sumo deaths were seen as tragedy or divine tribute. Some sources claim that a wrestler dying in the ring was an honor, proof that the gods had chosen him. Others describe elaborate mourning rituals and long silences that followed. Tonight, it feels like both. The other wrestlers slowly emerge, robes wrapped tight around them. No one says the name. You notice that. It's as if saying it aloud might drag his spirit back too soon, or too violently. Instead, the priest draws a ring around the body with a small branch of white pine, muttering something you can't hear. He places 3 grains of rice beside the fallen hand, and then everyone kneels. You kneel too, knees aching against the packed dirt. Your breath fogs in the cold. An hour passes, an actual hour. No one moves, no one speaks. You start to wonder if this is still mourning, or if it's transformed into something else. Penance, maybe. Or punishment. Or just waiting for the gods to notice. The body is eventually removed, carried not on a stretcher, but a folded mat tied at the corners. The ring is swept clean, but you can still feel it, the weight of what happened. Back inside, the silence lingers. Dinner is not served. Sake is not poured. But someone places a bowl of rice at each sleeper's side untouched, just in case. You lie back down, the image of the still body stamped behind your eyes like sunspots. You wonder what he saw in his final moment. If it was the sky, or a torch, or someone's face full of shock, or maybe nothing at all. Just the feel of sacred earth against his back. They say some matches were so intense that the gods stepped in and ended them themselves. A sudden wind, a snapped branch, a death. Interpret it how you will. You fall into an uneasy sleep, not quite dreaming, not quite waking. And when you wake again, dawn is creeping across the sky in soft pink streaks. The air smells of damp wood and something faintly floral. You make your way down to the stream. Wrestlers are already bathing, quietly. No jokes this morning, no splashes. You wash in silence, the cold water pulling you fully into the day. Later, in the mess hall, the rice is warm again, sticky, comforting. But a space remains open at the end of the line. No one takes it. Even when the last wrestler has eaten, that bowl stays untouched. You hear someone mutter, "Let the gods eat today." No one disagrees. You sit beside a wrestler with a scar that runs from jaw to shoulder. He looks younger than most, but his eyes feel ancient. He tells you, softly, that years ago, another wrestler died the same way. Fell mid-match. No warning, no noise, just gone. That time they burned the ring. This time they won't. The priest says the earth still holds value. You sip tea. It's too hot. It burns your tongue a little. You don't mind. Outside, preparations for the next match have already begun. Because in sumo, as in life, the rituals do not pause. They ripple. They continue. The priest isn't crying anymore. He's overseeing the salt blessing with precision, the way a craftsman shapes lacquer or folds cloth. His face is unreadable again. You ask one of the wrestlers how they carry on so quickly. He shrugs. We die. The gods don't. You think about that for a long time. That afternoon, the ring is repaired. Not rebuilt. Repaired. The edge is repacked. The center brushed clean, but the marks, the indentations where the body landed, are still faintly there. Like echoes. No one mentions them. And then the match begins. Not a big one. Just two boys no older than 14, stepping into the sacred dirt for their first ritual. You expect hesitation, fear, but they're steady. They stomp, they bow, they collide with a sound like a heavy drum, and when one falls, he laughs. It's the first laugh you've heard all day, and it breaks the spell. People smile, a few clap. The priest allows himself the hint of a smirk. Life returns. The gods, it seems, are satisfied. For now. That night, back in the dormitory, the laughter is back too. Someone sings a half-remembered folk song. Someone else spills sake and curses gently. You lie down and let the warm sounds wash over you like bath water. You still remember the body, but you also remember the rice. And the boys laugh. You close your eyes and feel the earth breathing beneath you, like a giant that never truly sleeps. The night is warmer this time, thick with the scent of pine sap and roasted barley. Sleep clings to you like a thin veil, but before it fully takes hold, something stirs you. A rhythmic sound, deep and hollow. Not drums, not chanting. It's stomping. You sit up, still foggy, and peer outside. A wrestler stands alone in the ring, barefoot, poised. He lifts his left leg high, higher than you thought possible for a body that wide, and slams it down. Thud. Then the right leg. Thud. Dust rises in little bursts, catching in the moonlight like smoke. You've seen this before, but now with the quiet all around it feels different, more like an incantation. You wrap yourself in your robe and walk slowly closer, barefoot in the dew. He doesn't stop, doesn't notice you. Or maybe he does and doesn't care. He's doing the shiko, the sacred stomp. Everyone says it's to scare away demons, that each impact drives evil back into the earth, that when the foot lands, it seals the ground shut, trapping spirits underneath like beetles in a jar. But others say it's posture training, that the real purpose is balance, breath control, and thigh strength, that it just happens to look mystical. And yet, when you're this close, it feels like something more. There's rhythm in it, gravity, like watching a tree settle roots. The way he lifts, slowly, holds just for a moment, and then slams down. It's a conversation with the earth, not a command. You try it yourself. Left leg, lift, wobble, then slam. Your heel thuds into the packed dirt. It hurts a little, but not much. You feel something ripple up through your spine. Maybe power, maybe just pride. He glances at you, nods once. Approval. You try again, this time smoother. The stomp rings out, echoing against the shrine walls. The wrestler smirks. You're not bad for someone still breathing. You blink. What does that mean? He just shrugs. The best shiko is done by spirits. That's why we stomp, to let them know we're still here. You're not sure if he's joking. Historians still argue over the origin of the shiko. Some say it began as a dance, an early court performance that evolved into combat preparation. Others insist it came from farmers, mimicking thunder to summon rain. There are scrolls that support both theories. No one agrees. But there's also a lesser-known belief that the stomp isn't to ward off demons. It's to wake the ancestors. A signal, a call. I am here. Watch me, and maybe guide me. You perform a few more, your balance improving. The wrestler corrects your angle, adjusts your stance. Wider, lower. Don't lift like a crane. Lift like a mountain remembering how to rise. You wonder if that's a proverb, or if he just made it up. He teaches you to breathe with the motion. Inhale during the lift. Hold. Exhale with the stomp. You feel your body hum, muscles shaking slightly. It's oddly satisfying, meditative almost. He tells you that some wrestlers perform hundreds of shiko each morning, as prayer, as punishment, as proof. You ask what they're proving. He says that they're still soft enough to bend and still strong enough to rise. That one you understand. You both sit at the edge of the ring afterward, watching steam rise from the dormitory rooftops. He tells you the story of a Rikishi, an old wrestler who once stomped so hard the ground split open beneath him. They say it happened during a match in a mountain village long ago. The wrestler's name was Obiko, which means great echo, and during his final stomp, the ring cracked. A small fissure appeared in the clay right under his heel. Everyone thought it was a trick, or maybe a sinkhole. But later that night, a hot spring emerged from the very same spot. People still bathe in it today. Some call it healing water. Others just call it the stomp spring. You ask if that's real. The wrestler grins, more real than half the rules we follow now. You both chuckle. Later back in your bed, you practice the shiko in your mind, visualizing the lift, the hold, the impact. It feels like a heartbeat, a grounding rhythm. 1, 2. 1, 2. You wonder if the gods still listen, if they hear these modern stomps and nod in ancient approval, or if they roll their eyes and mutter, "Ah, the new kids are trying again." You imagine a pantheon of celestial sumo judges sitting in clouds, sipping rice wine, betting on the outcomes with divine indifference. The image makes you smile. As you drift off, your thighs ache slightly, not in pain, but remembrance, like your body's whispering, "Yes, we did something." You hear one last stomp outside, faint, distant, possibly imagined, and then silence. The kind of silence that holds 1,000 years beneath its surface. Morning arrives lazy and golden, leaking through the paper shutters in long, quiet strips. You stretch, muscles protesting just enough to remind you you've been stomping like a divine thunder drum in the dark. Outside, the sky is already humming with cicadas, and somewhere, someone is boiling water for miso soup. But today's energy is different. There's no ceremony this morning, no formal ritual, just quiet chatter and the smell of damp earth. You're told you'll be heading out. Today's matches won't take place here at the shrine, but somewhere else, out in the rice fields. Because before arenas, before sumo became stadium-bound, it was something much looser, much messier. You don't wrestle for titles out there. You wrestle for land, for food, for honor, for fun. You walk with the others along a winding dirt path, the kind that weaves between flooded paddies. Dragonflies skim the surface of the water, and your reflection ripples with each step. In the distance, a small village comes into view. Children already wait near a makeshift ring, no more than a circle of packed earth lined with old straw. It smells of fertilizer and sweat and promise. This is the old sumo, the people sumo. Here, you fight with your neighbors watching. The elderly spectate from crates. Toddlers clap even when both wrestlers fall over at the same time. There's less reverence, more laughter. The gods still watch, you assume, but maybe with a sake cup in hand and one eyebrow raised. You learn that during planting season, local matches were often held beside the fields, not just for entertainment, but as offerings. A good match meant good harvest. That was the superstition. The logic? Less clear. But the tradition stuck. And so you find yourself kneeling beside the ring, barefoot, toes curling into the sticky edge of the rice field. A frog hops lazily past. No one reacts. This is normal. Today there are no shrine priests, no robes, just bare chests, loincloths, and the occasional well-placed eyebrow raise. You're paired up with a man called Genji. His belly enters the ring half a second before he does. His shoulders are wide as a cart yoke, and his grin suggests he's not taking any of this too seriously. He bows. You bow. Someone shouts, "Go!" And suddenly you're tangled. Arms, elbows, knees, mud. It's not graceful. It's not clean. It's hilarious. You slip. He slips. You both end up in the mud, laughing so hard you can't breathe. A little boy throws a clump of straw at you and yells, "Bad form." Genji points at him and says, "Train harder, then come back when your voice drops." The boy bows mock seriously. You try again. This time, Genji uses his belly like a battering ram. You don't fall, but you stagger enough that a nearby duck waddles away in fear. The match ends in a draw. You both bow again, hands muddy, knees sore, grins wide. A woman hands you a warm rice ball. It's got something crunchy inside, probably pickled radish, and it tastes like victory, or something close enough. You sit with Genji under a small tree, shade pooling over your arms like cool silk. He tells you stories from his village, how his grandfather once wrestled a tax collector during a festival and accidentally won control of the family field for 3 years. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. The collector never came back. That counts. You ask if these village matches ever led to something bigger. He nods. Sometimes scouts would watch, quietly. They'd pick the strongest, or the most respectful, or the most entertaining. You ask which one he is. He grins. Definitely not respectful. You both laugh, but then he adds something quieter. Sometimes they just watched to see who the gods liked, who kept winning without trying, who wrestled like their feet were blessed. You look down at your feet, still caked in mud, still trembling slightly from the last bout. You wonder if they feel blessed or just sore. Historians still debate whether these rural matches were more ritualistic or recreational. Some believe they were the true heart of sumo, raw, unscripted, sacred by simplicity. Others think they were distractions from the more pure forms of temple sumo. You can't say for sure, but sitting here with your ribs aching and rice on your breath, it all feels real. A rooster crows. A breeze shifts through the tall reeds. Someone's setting up for another match. A pair of sisters, both dressed in men's loincloths, stretching in the mud like they've done this before. No one stops them. No one stares. Genji whispers, "They're better than me." You whisper back, "I believe it." As the sun climbs higher, the matches blur together. Thuds, grunts, splashes, cheers. You lose track of time. Your body runs on salt, water, and shared joy. At one point, an old woman approaches the ring with a bowl of pickled plum and a folded paper charm. She sprinkles something, a gray dust, onto the ring, then bows and leaves. You ask what that was. Genji says, "Rice ash, from her ancestor's shrine." You ask what it does. He says, "Depends on what she prayed for." You nod. Later, a boy no taller than your waist asks to wrestle you. His eyes are fierce? You agree. You let him push you out of the ring on the third try. His friends cheer like he just saved the village from a dragon. You bow to him. He bows so deeply he nearly tips over. The matches wind down with the afternoon heat. Some nap under the trees. Others soak their feet in the shallow ditches that crisscross the fields. You sit quietly, watching fireflies begin to emerge. The air smells of grass, sweat, and something very old. Maybe respect, maybe joy, maybe just life, distilled in mud and movement. As dusk settles, a final stomp echoes across the paddies. Just one, but it rings deep. You smile. The gods surely are listening. The fireflies wink like tiny lanterns along the paddy edges, and you walk back toward the shrine with the others, legs heavy, shoulders loose, skin dappled with drying mud. Everyone is quiet now, but not in mourning. This is a good kind of silence, the kind that follows laughter and bruises and bellyfuls of rice. You pass the cedar grove. Someone whistles softly. A folk tune, maybe, or just breath with shape. The shrine looks different in twilight, more alive. Shadows flicker behind the shoji screens. Lanterns sway with the breeze like they're nodding at you. You head to the side quarters, expecting rest, but you're stopped at the door. A monk bows, then gestures for you to follow. He leads you around the back, where a small wooden structure leans into the hillside, hidden by thickets of bamboo. You never noticed it before. And apparently, that's the point. This is the hidden hall, he says, where the other teachings happened. You're confused. He slides the door open. Inside, rows of hanging scrolls, faded with age and smoke. Hand-drawn diagrams of sumo holds, foot positions, and is that someone mid-cartwheel? You step in, and the air changes. Colder. Denser. As if history here hasn't moved on yet. This is where the Sumo priest, who vanished, once trained his disciples. His name was Arakida Kawana. Yes, the same Kawana whispered about over rice bowls and sake breath. You've been walking in his footsteps without realizing. He wasn't like the other priests. He didn't believe sumo was just for show, or just for gods. He believed it was alchemy, a way to turn flesh into spirit, muscle into mantra. He taught silence, but also chaos, control, but also creativity. His students were told to fight blindfolded, to wrestle on wet stone. One scroll shows a man gripping a peach pit between his teeth while grappling, to remind him, apparently, not to scream, not even if he felt something snap. You find another scroll. This one shows a ring made not of earth, but salt. Thick walls of it, the center painted with red ink. Kawana called it the Circle of Truth. His students had to kneel in it overnight after losing, to absorb the shame into their bones. But here's the thing. No one knows where Kawana went. Some say he vanished after a scandal, that a student died in training. Others claim he was exiled for teaching women, which at the time was punishable by, well, let's just say exile was the polite version. And then there are the wilder theories. That Kawana didn't disappear. He dissolved. That during a match at dawn, under a blood moon, he simply bowed, exhaled, and turned into steam. No body, no grave, just an empty loincloth and a warm breeze. Historians still debate whether Arakida Kawana ever truly existed. Some say the scrolls were created later to justify certain training methods that broke from official temple doctrine. Others believe Kawana was a composite, bits of rogue monks stitched into one legend. But here, in this small hall, his presence feels real. The walls carry his weight. The monk who brought you here sits quietly in the corner. He tells you only a few are allowed to enter this room. That once you see Kawana's teachings, you're changed. Not by magic, but by perspective. He hands you a cup of barley tea. It's lukewarm, slightly bitter, comforting in a stern way. You ask if Kawana's style is still taught. The monk smiles faintly. No, not openly. You notice a small brazier in the center of the room. Its coals are still glowing. Someone's been here recently. You're not sure if that makes you feel safer, or the opposite. The monk shows you one last scroll. It depicts two wrestlers locked in a grapple, but neither has a face. Just blank ovals where the features should be. Above them, a line of calligraphy. You ask what it says. He answers softly. Wrestle with the body. Lose with the soul. Win with the self. You nod, not entirely understanding, but feeling something settle in your chest. Before you leave, you're invited to press your thumb into a pot of ink and stamp it onto a wooden plaque. No name, just the print. Proof, the monk says, that you were here, even if you forget. You do as asked. The ink is cold. You step back into the night. The others are asleep already. The air smells of wood smoke and distant plum blossoms. You lie on your mat, still thinking about the faceless scroll, about Kawana, about the idea that someone could train so deeply they vanish. And you wonder if maybe that's the point, to become invisible, not to the world, but to yourself, to wrestle until there's nothing left but breath. Just before your eyes close, you hear movement outside the screen door. A low shuffle. You turn your head slightly. No one's there, but the air smells faintly of salt and ink. You dream of footprints in ash. They appear one by one in the sacred ring, each step deeper than the last, as if the earth is remembering something heavy. You follow them barefoot, but just as you're about to step into the circle, the ash scatters, blown away by a gust of wind that comes from nowhere and smells of sake and sweat. You wake up, not with a jolt, just a quiet blink. Outside, the sky is soft gray, like the inside of a rice cake. Rain is coming. You can feel it in your bones, in the low press of the air. The dormitory is quiet. You step outside and find the ring covered, not with a tarp or cloth, but with woven reeds and a ring of stones. No matches today, but not because of rain, because someone died again. Only this time, it wasn't an accident. You hear the whispers before you hear the name. A wrestler, young, proud, fast. Too fast, they say, the kind that fought with sharpness instead of weight. His opponent had been much older, slower, but in the moment, the wrong moment, he shifted his footing, grabbed a belt, twisted, and there was a snap. Not the theatrical kind, the real kind. The young man collapsed, limp before he even hit the dirt. The older wrestler fell to his knees immediately, sobbing into his own fists. Not from pride, from panic, because this wasn't a God's judgment. This was human error. The priest declared mourning. But this time, it's different. This time, no one eats. The rice is left uncooked. The ring is left untouched. And the older wrestler is missing. Vanished into the hills, they say. Some think he ran. Others say he went to the shrine's inner chamber to pray for 3 days straight. You wonder if Kuwana would have called it fate, if this was a lesson, if dying in the ring means more when it's your own kind that kills you. Historians still argue about the earliest recorded sumo death on record. Some scrolls describe a match between two brothers, one of whom never rose again. Was it rage? Was it accident? No one knows. The ink on that scroll is stained with what might be blood. You spend the morning in silence. Everyone does. The bells aren't rung. The floors are swept twice. The salt stores are locked away. You find yourself wandering near the edge of the forest, needing distance. That's when you see the stone. It's not marked, just a round, pale boulder sitting at the foot of an old pine. You wouldn't have noticed it, except for the paper charm tied around it. A faded rope, a sprig of dried rosemary. Someone has turned it into a grave. But for whom? You sit beside it, not touching, just listening. The forest speaks in creaks and rustles. You can't tell if the stone is new or ancient, if it marks a death or a disappearance. There's something sobering about it, something clean. You return to the shrine just as the clouds break open. Not a storm, just a steady drizzle, soft enough to cool your shoulders. A few of the younger wrestlers are sweeping puddles away from the outer walkways. One hums quietly. Another ties his top knot tighter, then stops and presses his forehead to a wooden post. It's a kind of apology, you realize, not to the dead, to the ring. The priest finally speaks at sunset. He calls everyone to gather, barefoot, robes damp, hair stringy with mist. You kneel on the temple steps with the others listening. No speech, just one sentence. Today the gods turned their faces away. Then silence again. You don't eat. You don't speak. You just sit there as night folds itself around the shrine, wrapping it like cloth around a wound. Later, alone in your bed, you stare at the ceiling and wonder what it takes to step back into the ring after that. How do you stomp when you know what might be under your feet? How do you fight when the last time you did, someone didn't get back up? The dormitory breathes with restless sleep. You hear someone sobbing quietly under their blanket. No one interrupts. You roll to your side, arms tucked close, and let the sound wash over you. There are no legends tonight, no ghost stories, no heroic myths, just grief. Heavy and quiet. You think of the older wrestler. Wonder where he went. Wonder if he'll return. If the ring will accept him again. If he will accept himself again. The gods are quiet too. Or maybe they're waiting. Maybe, like you, they don't know what to say just yet. The next morning is slow. No one moves quickly. Even the birds seem hesitant to sing. You rise late, limbs stiff, as though your dreams had weight and left bruises behind. The rain has stopped, but the ground still weeps. The ring remains covered. You sip a small bowl of broth in silence. No rice today, just broth, thin, salty, slightly smoky. It tastes like a memory trying not to disappear. Everyone's quieter now. Not out of mourning. Mourning has passed. But because something unspoken lingers, like the gods haven't quite forgiven them yet, and maybe never will. You walk the temple grounds, tracing familiar paths with unfamiliar purpose. When you step near the ring, your feet pause. You want to lift your leg, just one small stomp, but it feels disrespectful, like dancing at a funeral. Instead, you turn and walk away into the side gardens, through the winding plum trees where the old stories bloom. And there it is again. The name whispered like breath against fabric. The Emperor's forbidden favorites. You've heard it before. Half jokes, sly looks, half-sipped cups of sake. Wrestlers who were summoned to the court for private matches. Not all matches involved grappling in the ring. Some took place behind lacquered screens, in rooms heavy with incense and perfume. You're told one story by a cook who always seems to know things he shouldn't. His name was Sadao. The cook whispers, eyes darting toward the main hall. He was favored, not for his strength, but for his silence. Sadao had a presence, apparently, the kind that made even nobles lean in just a little closer. He was sent to the palace as a gift from the shrine, an offering of muscle and ritual. He left a wrestler and returned something else. He never spoke of what happened there, but he was never the same. Some say the emperor liked to test his own strength in private bouts, away from public eyes. Others think Sadao was simply beautiful, not in the way of poets, but in the way of stone. Unmoving, impossible not to notice, and some believe he learned secrets from the court, dangerous ones, the kind you can't unlearn. One night he vanished, a robe found on the bank of the river, no body, but a sandal, half buried in the mud. Historians still argue over whether these court favorites were lovers, pawns, or spies. Official records are scarce. What exists is poetic, vague. Lines about disciples of strength offering devotion to the throne, and rituals of closeness that mirrored divine unity. Which could mean anything, or everything. You walk past the side hall where Sadao's name is still carved into a wooden beam, tucked beneath layers of lacquer. Someone once told you he carved it himself, or maybe the emperor did. No one knows. A young monk joins you on the path. He's humming to himself, carefree, until he sees your expression. Thinking about the vanished ones? He asks too casually. You nod. He shrugs. We all vanish eventually. Some of us just get remembered more interestingly. He points to the north wall of the shrine, where a tapestry hangs. At first, it looks like any ceremonial image, two wrestlers locked in combat under a swirling sun. But if you look closely, too closely, you notice the sun has a face, and it's watching one of the wrestlers, not both. You ask what it means. The monk just smiles. Favor, obsession, the same thing sometimes. That night, the air is hot, oppressive. You lie on your mat, sweating lightly, listening to the night press in around you. Someone's playing a flute outside, a slow, mournful melody. You roll over, stare at the ceiling, and imagine Sadao standing in the emperor's private court, surrounded by velvet and silk and shadows, bowing, waiting, enduring. Not a match, not a ritual, something in between. You wonder if he missed the dirt beneath his feet, the stink of sweat, the stomp of ritual, or if he welcomed the silk, even if it came with whispers and locked doors. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you feel the weight of silk over your shoulders. It's heavy, but it's warm. You sleep eventually, not peacefully, but deeply, as though the past, the palace, and the ring are all pulling you under together. You wake to the sound of slapping, not harsh, not violent, just two bodies meeting in rhythm, a deep, hollow thwack that seems to echo off the trees. The ring is uncovered again. The morning has passed, and in its place, sweat, steam, and the unmistakable thud of flesh on flesh. You rise quickly, pulse humming, and rush to the edge of the ring. A match is already underway. Two middle-aged men, both with the posture of old trees. Their movements aren't fast, but they're precise. Each grip lands like a memory. Each stomp echoes like punctuation. This isn't a showcase. It's a ritual for rain. You've heard about this one. It's old, rare, performed only during drought years, and even then, only with permission from the village elders and the shrine priest. The idea is simple. Fight hard enough, sweat enough, and maybe the gods will take the hint. Wrestlers become clouds. Impact becomes thunder. And with luck, the sky answers. You look around and realize this isn't just ceremony. It's desperation. The fields are too dry. The rice too brittle. If the gods don't help, the season is ruined. The wrestlers slam again. Dust swirls. A child coughs nearby. The heat is sharp. One elder stands nearby holding a bowl of salt water. She sprinkles droplets into the air each time a new match begins. So the gods remember what moisture feels like. She mutters, her voice cracked like dry clay. You ask a nearby monk if it works. He smiles, thin and wry. Once, maybe twice. Historians still argue whether rain sumo was truly believed, or just symbolic. Some say it began as a seasonal spectacle, while others point to records of emperors ordering matches during times of drought, hoping to stir divine sympathy through sacrifice, not blood, but sweat. And here, now you see why? By the fifth match, the wrestlers are drenched, their bodies slick and glistening under the white-hot sun. Each stomp throws up a puff of dust that clings to skin like flour. Their faces are red, focused, almost prayerful. You hear murmurs from the crowd. He's getting heavier. Did you see the cloud shift? A breeze. That's a good sign. You don't know if they're hopeful or delusional, but you want to believe too. In the sixth match, one of the wrestlers collapses from heat. His opponent doesn't celebrate. He kneels beside him, pours water over his head from a gourd, and fans him with both hands. Because in rain sumo, there are no winners, just offerings. The priest watches closely. You notice him looking not at the wrestlers, but at the sky, as if waiting for a nod, a signal. Then during the seventh match, it happens. A drop, one, then another, then more, and then with no fanfare, no lightning, Rain. Soft, gentle, almost shy. It starts like mist and builds into a steady drizzle, darkening the dirt, cooling the air, turning wrestlers into statues of glistening bronze. The crowd erupts, not with cheers, but and gasps. Reverent awe. A few weep openly. One woman falls to her knees and presses her forehead to the mud. The wrestlers don't stop. They fight harder now, slipping, grappling, their movements wild and wet. It's beautiful, animal, sacred. You're soaked through, but you don't care. You've forgotten what dry felt like. This is baptism. After the final match, the crowd begins to sing. A slow, rising chant that doesn't have words, just vowels stretched over ancient tones. You join in. The morning air tastes like earth and old prayers. You wake before the others, footsteps slow, breath fogging gently in the dawn light. Something pulls you outside. Maybe habit now, maybe hunger, but not the kind that rice can fix. The ring is empty, still dark in places where the sun hasn't touched yet. But today, you aren't here to watch a match. You're here to prepare the doyo, not just sweep it, build it, layer by layer. You've seen it from afar, the circle of clay, the packed foundation, the sacred salt tossed before battle. But today you'll feel every handful of dirt, every palm's press of straw, every deliberate stamp that turns chaos into a stage. The priest greets you quietly. No ceremony, just a nod and a bundle of straw ropes in his hand. You begin by clearing the surface, brushing away loose dust, old footprints, the last whispers of yesterday's clashes. Then come the layers. First, the clay. Thick, dense like wet memory. You kneel beside the others, spreading it by hand, pressing it smooth with flattened boards. It's harder than you thought. The sun rises, and your back already aches. But there's a rhythm to it, like kneading history. Next, you form the ring, the actual boundary, called the Shabudawara. Straw bales are wrapped tightly, stitched with thin twine, then buried halfway into the clay. A perfect circle, not symbolic. Literal, precise. You ask why it has to be so exact. The priest answers without pausing. Because the gods can tell. The circle must be symmetrical, aligned with the cardinal directions. North, always at the back. South, facing the main gate. The east and west for balance. It's geometry, but it's also cosmic. Some say the ring's shape represents the womb. Others say it's a shield, or a wheel. Historians debate whether the circle was inspired by Buddhist mandalas, Shinto shrines, or something far older, pagan rings of stone from a time before ink. You kneel at the center, pressing your palm into the clay. It's cold, but steady. A monk sprinkles water across the surface. To keep the dust down, he says, but his chant suggests otherwise. Then comes the salt. 4 corners, small piles. Always the same. It's not for flavor, it's for cleansing, and not just of spirits. Salt purifies fear, someone says beside you. That's why it stings and wounds. You carry a bowl to the edge of the ring and scatter it gently. You watch it fall like snow onto the clay. Each grain a talisman. You learn there's a tiny scroll buried in the center of every ring. Not large, not readable, just a strip of paper with sacred words and the names of past champions. It's a spine, a hidden truth beneath every stomp. Later, the shrine elder tells you of one doyo, built during a famine, where the clay was mixed with crushed rice, a desperate act, a sacred offering. The harvest that year was abundant. Coincidence? The elder shrugs. Or maybe rice just grows better when you sweat over it. You help shape the 2 starting lines, Shikiri-sen, where the wrestlers crouch before engaging, They're only a few feet apart, but they hold oceans of tension. Opponents stare from across those lines for seconds, minutes, sometimes longer. It's not about intimidation. It's about reading the soul in someone else's breath. You draw the lines with your finger, straight, crisp. They'll be trampled, erased. But for now, they're perfect. You step back and see the ring in full. It's just dirt, but it isn't just dirt. It's memory, ritual, frame, a circle built for collision and understanding. The priest places a small wooden charm at the northern edge, for protection, for permission. Then everyone steps back. The doyo is complete. You feel it in your chest, like a door has been opened. Not a loud one, a sliding screen, quiet, but final. Later that day, the first match opens the ring with no grand announcement. Just two men stepping barefoot onto clay they helped shape that morning. They bow, they pause, they breathe, and then they collide. A clash of thunder in a space made for whispers. You watch their feet, how they grip the edge, how the circle holds them. Not like a cage, like an embrace. They fall together, laughing, covered in dust. The ring is smudged, but still whole. Back in your quarters, you sit with a bowl of warm barley and think about what you helped build. You think about circles, about how everything returns. Salt to clay, breath to earth, stories to silence. And you wonder, maybe the ring isn't sacred because of what happens in it. Maybe it's sacred because of how it's made. The next morning begins with the scent of fresh straw and warm earth. But something is different. There's a quiet murmur through the temple grounds, like a current under the surface. Words shared in corners, glances exchanged over folded hands. You follow the sound to the courtyard. There, beneath the old plum tree, stand two women. Wrestlers. Their hair is bound, their robes tucked tight, their expressions unreadable. No one stops them. No one dares. You blink once, twice, then you hear it. An old man muttering behind you. Before they banned it, he says, women wrestled too. You lean in. He continues, his voice a gravelly whisper, full of history and half-truths. In the old villages, they fought in moonlight, barefoot in the rice paddies. No priests, no spectators, just the gods, watching quietly. You've never seen it. You've never even heard it spoken this clearly. Because they erased it. The scrolls barely mention it. The records are vague. Officials declared Sumo impure for women, banned their presence from the ring centuries ago. But before that, they were there. Historians still argue over the accuracy of early depictions, paintings of women in mawashi, poems about maidens of mud, even whispered tales from mountain shrines where priestesses grappled under stars. But the mainstream history? It skips them, conveniently. Today, two women return, not in protest, not in defiance, just because. They step into the ring with quiet grace. No fanfare, no announcement. Their feet slide against clay as if they were born for this. You notice the crowd, still, but not cold, curious. The first match is fast, explosive. The younger woman moves like lightning, but the elder center is solid. They clash, roll, twist, until the younger one lands hard on her side, smiling, breathless. They bow, and something changes in the air. A hum, a pulse, like the ring is remembering. The next match, more cautious, a different pair. One small and sinewy, one wide-hipped and still as stone. They circle, grapple, then fall together, wrapped like vines. A third match, a fourth. No one laughs, no one mocks, because it's beautiful, because it's right. You hear a boy whisper to his mother, "Can I train like them?" She doesn't answer, but her hand tightens gently on his shoulder. You glance around at the elders. Some frown, but some smile. Not because they agree, but because they remember. You sit beside Noboru, the elder with the crooked shoulder. He watches intently, arms crossed. You ask, "Did you ever wrestle a woman?" He snorts, "No, but one threw me in a rice field once. I was 15. She was barefoot. I never forgot." You laugh. He doesn't. She had better balance than me, and she didn't care if she fell. You return your eyes to the ring. The women fight differently. Not better, not worse. Just honestly. Less show, more strategy. Less stomp, more slip. They use their hips like secrets. They fall with grace. They rise with dignity. After the matches, no one claps, but many bow. One by one, the women exit the ring, their footsteps quiet, but firm. You notice something curious. None of them remove their belts. They stay in their mawashi as they return to the dorms, as if to say, "We'll be back." You help clean the ring. The sweat marks are the same, the footprints just as deep. But something lingers, like the ring has opened its lungs for the first time in centuries, like it exhaled. That night, you find a scroll tucked behind a beam in the stable. It's old, faded, drawn in charcoal on soft rice paper. 2 figures, both female, one lifting the other clean off the ground. A line of ink beneath reads, "She fell 7 times and rose 7 stronger." You sit with it a while. You don't take it. You leave it there. You think of the matches, of their silence, their grace, and you wonder, if the gods turned their faces away when women were banned, have they now turned back? Tonight the wind feels colder. Not sharp, not hostile, just aware. You sit at the edge of the ring, knees drawn to your chest, watching the torches flicker in uneasy rhythm. Something presses against the edge of your thoughts, like a ripple under glass. You aren't alone, not in the way you think. A monk joins you, silent at first, then sighs like he's about to tell you something he shouldn't. There's a belief, he begins, that when matches end, not all the spirits leave. You glance sideways. He's watching the ring. Some linger, he continues, not to haunt, but to watch. Maybe they miss it. Maybe they're waiting. Or maybe they've forgotten they're gone. You ask, are they dangerous? He shrugs, only if ignored. And then, almost as an afterthought, he says, there's a reason we bow to the ring, not to the opponent, to the spirits, the ones we know and the ones we don't. You don't sleep much that night. You dream of faces in smoke, of matches with no spectators, of wrestlers who vanish mid-bout like the phantom ricochet, but different. You wake to a drum beat, soft, steady, and no drums in sight. You ask around. No one else heard it, but the ring is damp with morning mist, even though it hasn't rained. Today, you're invited to observe the before dawn rites. They're not public. They're not even official. They're for the shrine caretakers, the silent ones, the ones who walk barefoot before sunup and bow to corners that no one else acknowledges. You follow in silence. The ring glows faintly, lit only by 4 lanterns placed at the cardinal points. At the north end, the monk who spoke to you last night begins to chant. Not words exactly, but syllables. Shapes made of breath. The others circle the ring, sprinkling ash and salt in alternating handfuls, not to cleanse, to welcome. You feel it now, the presence, thick, not malicious, just watching. The ritual ends with a stomp. Just one, not from a wrestler, from the monk. He raises his foot, slow, deliberate, and lets it fall like a final word in a long-forgotten sentence. Then they leave. You stay. You step into the ring alone, not to wrestle, just to listen. You close your eyes. There's no sound, but there's feeling. A warmth around your ribs, a tightness in your neck, as if someone is standing just behind you, matching your breath, waiting for a bow. You give one. It feels right. Then you hear it. A whisper, not a voice. A movement, a shift of air, a rustle of robes. You open your eyes. No one. But the salt on the western edge has been disturbed. A small pattern, like toes pressed gently into the clay. You don't move. Not yet. The belief is that the spirits in the ring are former champions. Wrestlers who died mid-match. Or after. Or never really died at all. Just kept returning until the line between body and breath disappeared. Historians dismiss it as folklore, hallucination from fatigue, tricks of torchlight. But in every shrine, there's a space where records stop abruptly. Names vanish, gaps in tournament lists, blurry portraits, unclaimed belts, and always, always there are stories. One wrestler reportedly bowed at the start of every match, 3 times instead of once. When asked why, he said, "Once for my opponent, once for the ring, and once for the others." He never clarified who the others were. He never lost a match. You return to your quarters and lie down without speaking. There's a pressure in your chest. Not heavy, not painful, just full. Like something has been given to you. A memory, maybe. Or a piece of someone else's. That night during the final match, a gust of wind circles the ring just as the winner raises his arm. Everyone sees it. The crowd hushes. The victor lowers his hand and bows, not to his opponent, but to the wind. The priest says nothing, but later you see him leave a bowl of salt water at the ring's center. He doesn't explain. He doesn't need to. And when you lie down that night, the air feels warmer, safer, as if something unseen has curled itself around the edges of your sleep, whispering, "We're still here." The days bleed together now, soft and warm like the worn silk of an old robe. Your body knows the rhythm without asking. Wake with the wind, stretch with the sun, sweep the dust from the past, and prepare for the next storm of flesh and will. But today, something strange happens. You arrive at the ring to find it empty, not just of wrestlers, of energy. It's quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a warning, not a blessing. The priest stands at the edge, arms crossed, face unreadable. He announces simply, "Sumo has been banned." The words fall like wet straw, absurd but heavy. You blink, so does everyone else. He says the shogunate has issued a regional order. No more wrestling, no more rituals, no more stomping on sacred earth, calling forth spirits, sweating under the god's gaze. Too many injuries, they say, too much chaos, too much attention. Apparently, some nobleman's son snuck off to become a wrestler, brought shame, caused whispers. And now, like a child taking away toys, the court has decided sumo must stop. You stand in stunned silence. The others do too. One boy breaks into tears. Another punches a wooden post so hard it cracks. Even the elders just stare at the ring. You ask the priest, "For how long?" He shrugs. "They didn't say." That's worse. The ring is covered. Again, not in reverence this time, but in suffocation. Straw mats nailed down, salt scattered haphazardly, as if to trap something beneath it. The monks walk in silence. No brooms, no chants. It's like watching a shrine be buried alive. But here's the thing about sumo. You can't ban what's already part of the soil. That night, a whisper spreads. A match. Midnight. No lights. No crowd. just wrestling. You follow the flickers of torchlight to the river clearing, a spot you'd never noticed before. Hidden by reeds, protected by silence, and there they are, two figures stripped to the waist, bowing in moonlight. No ring, just flattened grass. The match begins with no shout, just breath, just motion. They collide like ghosts remembering muscle. Arms tighten, hips shift. One slips, one roars. They fall together, splash into the shallow river. Then, laughter. Actual, full-throated laughter. You realize Sumo is back. Illicit, unwritten, unbreakable. More wrestlers arrive. Quietly, a few monks. Even Noboru, who mutters stupid ban under his breath and stretches with a wince. Matches erupt like poetry. Fluid. Fierce. Free. You see old men throwing young boys. You see women facing monks. You see one match fought blindfolded and no one questions it. You see sumo alive? Historians know this pattern well. Sumo has been banned before, by emperors, by warlords, by angry husbands, and paranoid bureaucrats. But every time it slipped underground, into rice fields, into riverbanks, into memory. It never died. You watch a match between two silent men. One wins. They bow. And that's it. No ego, no prize, just the ring. Imagined, honored, remembered, and somehow even stronger. At sunrise, everyone disperses. No words, no tracks. The grass settles as if nothing happened. But something did. You feel it in your bones, in your breath, in your stomp. Later that day, the priest finds you at the edge of the courtyard. He hands you a small bundle, wrapped in cloth. Inside, a piece of chalky white salt, a sliver of sacred straw, and a folded note. You open it. When they cover the ring, uncover yourself. No signature, no stamp, just truth. You look at the covered ring again, and you smile, because now you know you don't need a circle of clay to wrestle. You don't need permission to honor struggle. You don't need a crowd to give meaning to your fight. You only need intention, and maybe a little sweat. The band lifts quietly. No trumpet, no scroll, just a muttered rumor, passed from monk to wrestler to cook. A notice posted, then removed. The shrine priest bows once in the direction of the palace, and life resumes as though it never stopped. But something's changed. The ring isn't just a ring anymore. It's become a memory palace, layered with all you've seen, salt and ghosts, sweat and silence, rituals and rebellion. Every footprint feels sacred now. Every stomp echoes longer. The sacred sleep of giants is near. Today's matches are the last before the shrine closes for the season. The final ritual, the ceremonial bow, the farewell sack. But before the crowd gathers, before the drums beat, you're taken to a small wooden hall behind the shrine, a quiet space used only once a year. Inside, silence, no torches, just morning light sliding through slats in the walls, dozens of folded robes, neatly stacked bowls of uncooked rice, and in the center, a large straw mat. This, you're told, is where wrestlers rest before the final match. Not sleep. Rest. A ritual of stillness. To remind the body what it carries. To honor every bruise, every fall, every victory that hurt more than it healed. You lie down on the mat. At first, nothing happens. Then you feel it. The weight, the history, the quiet roar beneath the floorboards. The breath of everyone who's ever touched the ring, rising through your back like smoke through cracks. You close your eyes, and you remember. The Shiko stomp that called down clouds. The masked fighters in moonlight. The wrestler who vanished mid-match. The girl who whispered poetry before throwing a monk. The salted wound that turned into a prayer. and the phantom rikishi, who may still be watching. You sit up when you're ready, and you bow, not because someone told you to, but because you're grateful, because the earth deserves it. Outside, the matches begin. They're slower today, softer, not because the wrestlers are weak, because they're savoring it. The final day is always like that. Each stomp feels ceremonial. Each fall is gentle, like a leaf giving in to gravity. You watch the final match from the edge of the ring. Two giants, old rivals, no tension, just mutual weight. They circle, they smile, they collide like waves finding shore. And when one falls, it isn't defeat, it's completion. The winner helps him up before the dust even settles. They bow, first to each other, then to the ring, then to the sky, and the wind shifts, just slightly. That night the wrestlers retire early. No sake, no songs, just soft laughter and aching joints and quiet nods from across the room. Some won't return next season, some will. You lie down on your mat for the last time. The straw is cool against your back. You exhale slowly. Outside, the ring is covered again, but not like before. Not to hide it, to let it rest. Because even the sacred must sleep. You close your eyes, and as your breath slows, your body sinking deep into the mat. The memories do too, folding around you like a second blanket. One made of muscle, myth, and ritual. One stitched with sweat and silence. And just before your dreams take over, you hear it again. A stomp. Soft, far off, maybe imagined, or maybe one last spirit bowing out. Either way, you smile, because you understand now. Sumo isn't about fighting. It's about remembering. It's about the ring between life and legend, and how we bow to both. The story fades now, like ink soaking into old parchment. The ring quiets, the torches dim. The footsteps fall away behind you, soft and patient. You've walked barefoot across centuries. You've kneeled in sacred dirt, tasted salt on your lips, listened to stories that never made it into the textbooks. You felt the warmth of ancient breath on your shoulder. You've bowed to ghosts, and they bowed back. So let go now. Let your arms grow heavy. Let your breath stretch long. Let your chest rise and fall like distant drums echoing through mist. There is nothing left to chase here. No final match. No forgotten warrior. No secret scroll waiting to be found. Just you, and the memory of the clay beneath your feet. Even the gods are quiet now, their gaze softened, their judgments paused. The spirits in the rings have curled up beneath the straw, bellies full, tempers cooled, and eyes gently closed. You can rest too. There is no shame in sleep. The strongest warriors know when to surrender to stillness. The ring will wait for you. The circle will stay drawn. And if the dreams come heavy, let them. Let them carry you deeper, into rings that float like islands on clouds, into memories stitched with laughter and bruises and steam, into a place where even giants lie down like children, and the world, just for a while, is still. So sleep now. The matches are over. The fireflies have gone quiet, and the night, like the ring, holds you completely. Rain lulls you to sleep, but thunder wakes you. Not sky thunder, feet, dozens of feet, stomping in rhythm on wet earth, deep, hollow, ritualistic. You throw your robe over your shoulders and slip outside. The rain has slowed, but the air is thick with mist. The ring glows faintly under torchlight, damp and glistening like the inside of a shell. And in it, figures. Not the usual wrestlers. These ones are smaller, nimbler. They move like dancers. Quick, sudden pivots, feints, and twists. They circle each other like wind around stone. And they wear masks, full-face masks carved from dark wood. Fox, crane, tengu, even a weeping maiden. Each painted in bright colors that shimmer in the moisture. You ask someone beside you, barely whispering, "What is this?" He replies without turning, voice low, "Kamen Sumo, the masked matches." You've never heard of it. It feels like something half forgotten or half forbidden. Apparently, it's a tradition older than many admit. Wrestlers would don masks not for ritual, but for secrecy. To fight without identity. To challenge a superior. To settle private scores publicly, without anyone knowing who bested whom. Sometimes it was practical. A noble son who wanted to wrestle without shaming his family. A farmer testing himself against shrine champions. Or a rival stealing into a foreign temple to prove a point. But sometimes, it was personal. You watch a match unfold between a fox and a demon. Not literal, of course, but the masks give it that edge. The fox moves slyly, baiting, circling. The demon charges. They clash, fall, roll through the mud. A cheer goes up, quiet, but excited. You notice something odd. These matches are faster, more brutal, less formal, but still strangely elegant. One masked wrestler flips another completely. An illegal move, informal sumo, but no one stops it. Because here, the rules don't apply. Historians still debate whether masked sumo was officially sanctioned or simply tolerated. Some records hint that temple elders turned a blind eye. Others suggest entire underground leagues, separate from the sacred rituals, thriving in secrecy for centuries. You can see why. There's something electric here. Without names, there's only motion, only energy. Each stomp a mystery, each throw a surprise. You lean in, breath fogging in the air. A small figure steps into the ring, wearing a white mask with black tears painted beneath the eyes. They bow, then face an opponent twice their size. A hulking red mask with horns carved into its forehead. You prepare to watch a squash match, but within seconds, the white mask twists, ducks, grabs, and sends the red mask flying in a perfect shoulder throw. The crowd gasps. The red mask stands, bows, and leaves without removing it. The white mask lingers, then walks away, vanishing into the shadows behind the trees. You ask the man beside you, "Who was that?" He just smiles. Some secrets stay sacred. Later, someone tells you about a legendary masked rikishi, known only as the Weeper. Never spoke, never removed the mask, fought for 3 seasons, never lost. They say he once defeated the reigning shrine champion using only one hand. They also say he was a woman, or a ghost, or Kawana himself returned to test his disciples. You sip water and let the theories settle like steam. In your bones, you don't need answers, just the feeling, the electric hum of anonymity in combat. You wonder what it would feel like to wrestle masked, to remove the gaze of others, to lose shame, to lose name. Would your body move differently? Would your fear evaporate? Would you finally fight like no one's watching, even the gods? You imagine stepping into the ring with no identity, no expectation, just breath, weight, and mud. The freedom in that thought is dangerous. As the masked matches end, the wrestlers vanish behind the side hall, one by one. No one unmasks. No names are spoken. Only the torchlight remains, flickering against the ring's wet edge like it's trying to remember what just happened. You return to your mat, with the image still burned behind your eyes, the white mask, the black tears, the impossible throw. You lie on your back and imagine your own mask. What would it look like? What would it hide? And what might it reveal? Outside, the rain returns, but softer now, as if the sky, too, is bowing in silence. The next day, the masks are gone. No one mentions them. Not at breakfast, not during chores, not even in whispers between the younger monks. It's as if the entire night dissolved in the rain, leaving only damp footprints and a few mysterious bruises. But you remember. And so does the ring. It feels quieter now, not empty, just thoughtful, like it's recovering from something secret. You're invited to attend a special match this morning. Not a ritual, not a performance, a duel. Sumo and samurai didn't often cross paths, but when they did, sparks flew. Sometimes literally. You're told this story before the match begins. Long ago, as samurai rose in prominence, they began to see sumo as too wild, too soft, too unrefined for warriors of blade and bushido. But sumo had its own pride, and when challenged, it responded, not with steel, but with silence and weight. That tension has lingered, and now today it's being revisited. The shrine is hosting a rare sumo versus kenjutsu match, not to the death, not even to pain, just to principle. One samurai, one rikishi, no weapons, just bodies, and code. You sit close to the ring. The spectators are quiet. Even the crows seem to be holding their breath. First enters the samurai, tall, composed, dressed in black and gray, hair tied with silk. His eyes are sharp, scanning, calculating. You can tell he's memorizing every inch of the dohyo. Then the wrestler, barefoot, bare-chested, massive. His steps shake the ground. There's no bell, no chant, just a nod. And they move. The samurai lunges with surgical grace, sweeping low. The wrestler pivots, slow but deliberate, and slaps him away with a motion that would send most men flying. The samurai stumbles, but doesn't fall. He smiles. They circle. Again. The wrestler advances now, like a storm rolling in. The samurai waits. Then, with a flick of the foot and twist of the hip, he dodges sideways, hands brushing the wrestler's belt, attempting a grip. And the wrestler drops. A full-body collapse. Not defeat. Strategy. He turns the motion into a roll, grabbing the samurai mid-step and dragging him to the edge with the momentum of a landslide. They land together. The dust rises. The ring is quiet. And then, the samurai laughs. Not mockingly. Joyfully. He bows deeply. The wrestler bows back equally low. The crowd exhales. It's a draw. Historians still argue about documented matches between sumo wrestlers and samurai. Some accounts speak of disdain, others of mutual admiration. There are scrolls depicting sparring sessions where both sides learned from each other. Balance from sumo, speed from swordplay. In some eras, sumo was even used as part of samurai training, especially in winter when swords were sheathed and strength needed sharpening. One tale claims that a retired samurai once trained in sumo until his death, saying the ring taught him the edge that blade could not. You believe it. Later in the bathhouse, the samurai and wrestler soak side by side, laughing over bruises. You overhear the samurai saying, "You fight like a stone that's decided to move." The wrestler replies, "You dodge like someone with bills to pay." Everyone laughs. That night, the moon hangs low and yellow. You walk the perimeter of the temple, ears full of distant conversation and the faint trickle of water over stone. You wonder how many unspoken duels the world has seen. Not with swords, not with fists, but with silence, with presence, with the refusal to fall first. You return to your mat and lie down, imagining the match replaying behind your eyelids. You remember the dust rising, the sound of two bodies hitting earth in perfect unison. And you wonder if that's what respect sounds like. No music, no winner, just wait. Shared. You wake to the smell of something sweet and sharp. Fermented plums, maybe, or rice wine left open too long. The dormitory is empty. Strange. You step outside and see footprints in the dew? Wide, heavy, too many to count. They all head toward the stables. You follow. Sumo stables aren't stables for horses. They're dorms, really. Training houses, places where wrestlers eat, sleep, train, and, if the rumors are true, occasionally break a few sacred rules. The stable yard is buzzing. Today is cleaning day, a sacred ritual in itself. Brooms sweep, robes flap, water splashes over dirt floors. You help scrub one of the wooden beams, only to realize it's sticky with something that smells suspiciously like sake. You glance at the monk beside you. He shrugs. It happens. And you realize the stables have secrets. You're given a tour by an elder named Noboru, whose left shoulder is permanently crooked from a match in his 20s. He walks with a limp, but carries himself like royalty. He points out each section. This is where we hang the mawashi. Don't touch, unless you want your fingers to smell like ambition and shame for 3 days. This is the punishment corner. We don't use it anymore. Too damp. This is the window where one of the boys once escaped after sneaking in sake and getting caught cuddling with a merchant's daughter. You laugh. He doesn't, because apparently it's still a sore subject. You ask about discipline. He sighs. We train for years to control our bodies. No one tells us what to do with our hearts. The stable feels different from the shrine, less sacred, more human, like a teenage diary scrawled in muscle. And as you spend time there, you see the cracks in the lacquer, the pranks, the whispered gossip, the forbidden romances. Yes, romances. You hear one whispered through a steam curtain in the bathhouse. A wrestler who fell for the shrine's calligrapher. They'd meet under the plum tree at midnight, exchanging poems instead of kisses. Until one day, the calligrapher left. A job offer from a Kyoto noble. The wrestler didn't eat for 3 days. They say he stepped into the ring that week and lost deliberately. Said he wanted to feel empty enough for the gods to refill him. No one spoke of it again, but someone still leaves folded paper under the plum tree once a week. You find a small pile there, most faded, some unreadable. One simply says, "Your hands were softer than I deserved." You close it gently. Historians still debate the role of stables in sumo culture. On the surface, they're practical. A place to train, sleep, eat. But deeper, they're families. Fractured ones, volatile ones, but bound by sweat and rice and rivalry. One scholar wrote that the stable is the only place in Japan where men can cry in front of each other without shame. You believe it now. Later, you help prepare chankonabe, a rich stew made for wrestlers. The pot is enormous. Inside, chicken, tofu, cabbage, miso, daikon, and what someone calls mystery meat. You don't ask. Everyone eats from the same pot. It's loud, messy, joyful. Someone spills broth down their front and swears. Another tosses a pickle across the table. A third arm wrestles a monk and loses spectacularly. This isn't ceremony. It's life. You feel full, not just in your stomach, in your chest, in your bones. And then as night falls, the stable quiets. Someone plays a biwa, a stringed instrument that sounds like soft thunder. And someone else sings, voice rough and low, a song about a lost belt, a found lover, a match that never ended. You lie on a mat near the back, eyes half closed, listening to the creaks of wood and breath. You wonder what it would be like to live here, to wake with the dawn, to eat from the same bowl every day, to know who you are by who pushes you in practice. There's something romantic about it, and something tragic. The stables are warm, but the walls are thin, and hearts, even thick ones, break easily when no one's looking. Just before sleep takes you, you hear soft footsteps. Someone walks past barefoot, carrying a folded letter in a single blossom. They head toward the plum tree. You pretend not to see, because love in stables like this blooms best in silence. It's long past midnight when you wake, not from a sound, but a feeling. The kind of feeling that drifts in on cold air and the scent of old stone. A shiver in your bones. The whisper of something standing just beyond the edge of knowing. You sit up. The stable is still. Not even a snore. Everyone asleep, sprawled like warriors after battle. You slip out the side door. The moon is low and swollen, casting a silver sheen across the ring. The torches have burned low, but something glows at the edge of the circle. A figure, massive, silent. He's not moving. You step closer. He stands perfectly still, arms at his sides, staring down at the center of the ring. His silhouette flickers, less like a body, more like smoke trying to hold shape. He wears no mawashi, no robe, just skin and stillness. You don't recognize him. You've never seen anyone that big without the others knowing. You're about to speak when he moves. No stomp, no ritual, just a slow raise of the arms, then a bow, deep, reverent, and then a match begins. But there's no opponent. He moves like there is one, though. A step to the left, a sudden pivot, a strike of the elbow, a perfect throw, air against air. His body twists, resettles, flows. He breathes hard, as if resisting something massive. He's wrestling. A ghost? Or maybe he is the ghost. You feel frozen, watching. The air around him seems to bend. A ripple, a heat wave, a presence. Then, just as quickly, it ends. He bows again and vanishes. Not dramatically. No smoke puff, no blink. He simply takes a step backward and fades. You run to the ring. Nothing. Just wet earth. No footprints, no scent, just silence. Back at the stable, you shake one of the monks awake. You tell him what you saw. He listens, then grunts. You saw the phantom rikishi. He says it like it's normal, like you'd seen a bird or an odd-shaped cloud. You ask, is he real? The monk shrugs, half asleep. Real enough to throw someone once. A visiting fighter challenged the ring alone and got flung 10 feet. No one else was in it. He rolls over. Don't worry. He only appears to those who respect the ring. That doesn't make you feel better. The next morning, you ask others about the phantom rikishi. Some smile. Some roll their eyes. But a few go quiet. Eyes distant. One older wrestler says, I saw him once, back when I thought I was invincible. He humbled me. Another mutters, my brother saw him before his last match, said he was made of silence. You ask the priest. He doesn't blink. There are spirits in the ring, he says. Some we welcome. Some we just let be. He gestures toward the shrine's highest beam, where a small pouch of salt hangs. For him, in case he gets hungry. Historians still argue over stories like this, whether the phantom rikishi is a myth born from exhaustion, hallucination, or old sake fumes. But certain temples keep a spare mat unrolled every night, just in case. And one scroll shows a faint outline beside a champion, an extra shadow where there should be none. You spend the day slightly on edge, waiting for something to shimmer at the edge of your vision. But nothing does. Until evening. You find a small paper charm tucked under your mat. It's not yours. It's old, folded many times. When you open it, it reads, Only the forgotten remember. No signature, no stamp, just those 5 words. You hold it for a long time, wondering if the phantom rikishi is a ghost of someone who never made it to the history books, a soul stuck in the ring, still trying to win a match that no one else can see. You look at your hands. You think about all the bodies that pass through this place, all the matches, all the sweat, all the ghosts, and how, if no one remembers them, maybe the ring does. That night, you lie in bed, heart quiet, listening for movement, but the ring stays empty, the torches stay dim, and you wonder if he found peace, or if he's still waiting for an opponent worthy of letting him rest. The next few days pass in strange calm. The rain becomes a memory. The matches return to their rhythm. You sweep the paths. You eat your fill. You laugh quietly at jokes you now understand better. But you keep glancing at the ring, expecting to see him. That shadow, that silence in the shape of a man. He doesn't return, not yet. Instead, life moves forward, and the matches take on a new weight. Not because the rules have changed, but because you have. You start to notice the philosophy stitched into every grip, every fall, every stomp. A kind of poetry, a kind of war. Someone says over breakfast, every belly is a battlefield. You laugh at first, but then you think, maybe that's not so far from the truth. Sumo isn't about speed or style. It's about the moment of impact. It's about standing your ground while someone else tries to move the world beneath you. It's soft versus sharp, mass versus momentum, weight versus will. And in that quiet space between the stomp and the push, something eternal waits. You find yourself drawn to a training session led by an older master named Takanobu. His arms are covered in scars, one from a fall, one from a burn, and one from, he claims, an angry duck in Osaka. You believe the first 2. He doesn't teach holds or tricks. He teaches presence. Your opponent is not the man in front of you, he says. It's your hesitation, your story, your past. You raise your hand. He looks at you. You ask, what if your past is too heavy? He nods slowly. Then you let it fight. You step aside. Let the weight do the work. And that becomes the lesson. You enter the ring, not to win, but to let the weight speak, not just your physical weight, your fears, your grief, your memories. You stomp. Hard, and something rises. You push, and something resists. You fall, and the earth holds you like it expected this. Takanobu watches, eyes narrow but kind. Later, he sits with you under the ginkgo tree. He tells you a story. Once, a rikishi trained so hard he forgot his own name. Everyone just called him the belly. He never spoke, never asked questions. But when he stepped into the ring, opponents would bow before the match started, and not out of fear, out of recognition, as if they were meeting something bigger than a man. You ask, what happened to him? Takanobu smiles. He forgot to leave. He says it like a riddle, or a warning. You sip your barley tea and stare at your hands. They are calloused now. Thicker, not just from training, but from holding this strange sacred world together. You realize something then. Sumo isn't about force. It's about yielding until the right moment to resist. It's about letting yourself be pushed, just enough to know where your center is. And that center, that still point at the heart of the ring, is where you meet yourself. Historians rarely write about this. They mention rituals, costumes, tournaments, but they don't talk about what happens inside the silence of a match. The psychology, the poetry, the sacred weirdness of 2 bellies touching, and that being the truth. Later that night, the matches are held in dim light. No chants, no priests, Just practice. Two men grapple. Slowly. Gently, like lovers on the edge of an argument. They push, fall, laugh, reset. The ring becomes a conversation. Not who wins, but who holds their ground with grace. One match ends when both men simply stop. No push, no throw, just a long stare, then a bow, then a nod. And the crowd sighs like they've just seen a good ending to a story. You return to your mat and stare at the ceiling again. Only now you imagine the ring not as a place of battle, but as a mirror. And each stomp is a question. Where do I end? Where does the world begin? Sleep comes easily now, not as escape, but as surrender. You let your breath fall into rhythm with the soft sounds of the stable. A match is won tomorrow. A match is lost today. But the ring holds everything. If you've made it all the way to the end, leave a comment and tell me what story you'd like to hear next. I genuinely enjoy seeing and reading every kind word you share. Thank you for watching. Sweet dreams and good night.